Hey guys, with the tournament coming up, we got to make sure that we're staying as fair as possible for everyone. And one of the things that makes it fair is making sure everyone competes with the same uniform. Now, if you're doing a gi, we have this little gi measuring block tool that you might have been familiar with at some of the events. And it's something that we're going to use again at ours to make sure people are in line with what we're doing. So I'm going to borrow someone else to come out with the gi on. And Annie's going to come up, and when you go into the bullpen, they're going to check your weight and measure your gi. This slot is to measure right here how thick the collar is. This isn't really going to be much of an issue anymore. All gi manufacturers adhere to that kind of a standard. It used to be in the old day, like you had super thick gis that people couldn't grab, so that's why that was going on. They also, this line is to mark making sure that the lapel isn't too thick, which it's not. They're all done the same way. But one of the issues here you could probably see is, and he's got Thomas's gi on, is there's this little line here. We put this on the end of the gi and we're looking at your wrist bone, and this gi is too short. So we'd be telling Annie to go find another gi to go put it on. You're not allowed to compete with a gi that's too short. If the gi was definitely on the line, we'll say a little bit more, we'd be tolerant about that, especially with kids. We know they go through gis pretty fast. But if you're an adult, you know, that's getting a little sketchy. And if it's here, which I know some people have, like, this is not acceptable at all. So we're measuring that for the wrist to the end of the lapel to the wrist, and also the end of the pant leg to the ankle, right? So if they're too short, then you're gonna be asked to get a new gi. And I know a lot of people like to do this, and they pull their pants down so that their ankles and their pants are close to the ankles. We're aware of that. So we're gonna be having you lift your arms up and check your strings have to be above the hip bones. So if your pants are too short, or your wrist or your sleeves are too short, you may be asked to get a new gi. Other one that's not usually much of an issue, isn't much nowadays, is again with that line, you want to make sure that the lapel is, or sorry, the sleeve is thicker or longer than that gap. Sometimes you get that person that has that gi that's just like painted on. That's an illegal gi. So something to be mindful of. If your gi is too short or too tight, you may be asked to replace your gi. And I'm sorry, it's not a responsibility. You should be training a gi that adheres to those rules, because that's what the competition is a training under a gi with that rules. The other one, and it's not really an issue with this one's a good one, but you know, sometimes you have people and they have patches and there's holes in the patches. You're not allowed to wear a gi with holes in the patches. You will be asked to remove the patch or find a new gi. We cannot have fingers getting caught or anything else. It's the same thing as hair. If you're gonna have hair, you wanna have it tied up, not necessarily like this, and just did it quickly, but braided hair for women or guys with long hair. We don't want hair getting caught up or tied up in fingers. Can't have patches in the fingers. Those doing no gi cannot have pockets. If you have shorts with pockets, you're not allowed to wear them. It's a hazard, as well as anything metal, like sharp zippers or buttons. You're not allowed to have any of that stuff while you're competing. Lastly is having a clean uniform. If your uniform is excessively stinky, you'll be asked to change it, or if there's blood on it. So obviously we don't have any blood on your gi. It happened to me in Brazil. I was competing, I was on the bottom of another guy in side mount, I was pushing on his head to escape, and he started bleeding on my gi. It was my responsibility to replace my gi or I was disqualified. It was frustrating. I did have another gi in the stands, but they didn't give me much time to go get it. I did get it and went on to compete, but it is a frustrating part. So something to think about. If there's blood on your gi, it is your responsibility to go replace it, right? Hope to see you on Saturday.